And Missy, are you watching anything that we should know about?
Well, I just finished Tiger King on Netflix.
Wow, that's very controversial, I hear.
It is, and it's right down the road for me. So
Wow.
Not all Oklahomans are like that. Please take that into note, but it is a wild ride. Crazy, very crazy.
Yeah. So just so everybody knows, Valerie and Missy both work with me at Girly Book Club headquarters. Missy is in Oklahoma. She runs the Edmond chapter of our book club, and Valerie works out of Toronto, and she doesn't run any chapters, although she attends in Toronto quite frequently. But she's like my right-hand woman, I guess you could say. And it's so nice to see so many of our hosts online tonight. Lots of you I've never seen your face, so it's wonderful to see you. I'm very sorry that we're not meeting in person tonight. Clearly that's not possible, but this is definitely very cool that we get to meet online and have a very, very big book club. I do have some announcements that I want to go through as they come in on the side. Oh, people from all over the world, and some very good suggestions on what to watch on television. I also want you to type in the chat window and let us know if you're a frontline worker, if you work in healthcare or otherwise any sort of industry that's keeping us with groceries and all those necessities that we need. We want to shout out to all of you and all that hard work that you're doing to try and end this as soon as possible. We are going to do a big book giveaway tonight. So we've got copies. We have copies so the way that publishing works, I have to tell you in advance, is that it's very country specific. So if you are a publisher in the US, then you want the book promoted in the US. If you are a publisher in Canada, you want the book promoted in Canada. So we have a bunch of books that have to be given away to specific countries. So we will let you know the question and then what countries. So if you're a Canadian, then you can answer certain questions. If you're an American, you can answer other questions. And if you're from Europe or the UK, then you can answer other questions. So yes, we will cover those as we go. Those will come up. We will also be asking lots of questions about Vox. That's what we're here. That's what we're all here to discuss. If you haven't finished it, we might spoil the ending for you. Just a heads up. It was a very controversial book, especially this month with everything that's going on. There's an interview published on our website with the author that was very enlightening. You might have thought that she was a huge feminist, and it's not the case. So if you have time, you might want to check that out. We also are going to link to our Val and Missy will be linking to our virtual book clubs for next month. We have them listed. There's 3 global book clubs. They're going to be like this. There will be free book giveaways and such, but they're actually a paid event. As I said, there's 3. They're all 3 different time zones. There's the link. Thanks, Val. And we're going to try and keep the lights on at the Girly Book Club because, as you can imagine, things are a little bit tight this month and probably for the next few months as we cancel all of our in-person meetings. So there is also a lot of your hosts have volunteered their time to do individual meetings. So if you belong to an individual chapter, we're starting to list the April virtual book clubs for those individual chapters, and those are unpaid. So if you want to connect on a more personal basis, having said that, these meetings next month will be smaller. We're going to put a cap on them so that everybody has a much better chance at communicating and contributing to the conversation. So sign up for one of those. There will be a cap on those. What else do I need to talk about? I think that's about it right now. And the way that we're going to work tonight is we're going to ask the discussion questions. I'm actually going to turn my chat window off, so Val and Missy will be running that. I will be looking for people raising their hands. So I will ask one of the discussion questions, and there's an ability on here for you to raise your hand, and you can contribute to the conversation that way. So, okay, sorry. Valerie's just responding to a thing and it came up on mine. Also, I'd like to let you know that this is being taped. just so that we can post it online and that other people can watch it if they want to hear what everybody thinks about the book or whatnot. All right. So I'm going to go to the discussion questions. I'm also going to post those so that you can, so they have an idea of what's coming up. I'm going to post them in the chat window as we go along. All right, so this is the first one. So the first question is, did you enjoy this book? Rated out of 5. If you're having trouble figuring out how to raise your hand, just let us know through the chat window and we can give you instructions. If you go to the participants button, manage participants, then there should be a more button that says like lower hand, raise hand. And that is how we're gonna make this work tonight. So the first question is, oh, there you go. And you can also do that. Everybody's putting their answer into the chat window, which also works, absolutely. But if you do want to speak, that's what this is all about. That's what this technology allows for. We're at 111 people, so as you can imagine, you might not get to speak frequently, but we'll try and cover as many people as possible. And you're not here to hear me speak, so I'm going to stop. I'm going to let Rhonda, I'm going to unmute you, and I'm going to let you take it away now.
Oh, that's funny. Wouldn't people love to have that mute button in normal? This book offered so much different topics for us to have at the supper table. And that's what I loved about it, is that there was something kind of for all ages. And so I said 4 out of 5 because I couldn't wait to read what I had read and then discuss it at the supper table, because it kind of had like all different ages and all different pressures and different kind of things. So that's why I rated it 4 out of 5.
So do I understand, did your family read it as well, or you just brought the subjects up?
I brought it up,
okay.
and we discussed it in such detail that I think they felt like they read it because we talked about it so much.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for that. And does anybody else want to weigh in via video or even just via voice? Yep, Fatima?
Hi. So yeah, I found it interesting. I was just talking about it to my mom yesterday. I was saying, oh, I'm doing this virtual book club. And I was talking about like the fact that they didn't have voices. And she's like, oh, well, what would be the problem with that? And so it was like interesting to kind of talk about it. But as a book in general, I didn't really like it, but I did think that the concepts that were raised in it were really interesting.
All right, thank you. Linda, what did you think?
Can you hear me?
We can.
Okay. I thought it was an interesting concept. I thought it was more interesting that she had all these words that she couldn't speak, but they were still going on in her head, since it's, you know, the narrator, first person narrator. And I thought that was kind of an interesting, not an omnipotent telling the story. It made it a lot more personal, but the ending I thought was, she got tired of writing. What? I mean, it was just trite, too tied up. I mean, it was just too neat and tidy for me. I think she just said, okay, I think I'm done. I got to get it to the publisher. I don't know what happened, but that's just my opinion.
Well, so I know what happened because I asked her, and you're not wrong.
Oh, okay.
I actually had 2 months to write this book. So that was my biggest problem with the book, is that it seemed to like begin well and it like laid it all out. And then all of a sudden, like the whole thing was over in the last 50 pages.
Exactly.
I agree with you. She says that she likes her next book better because she had more time to write it.
Oh, good.
She's very honest.
I'll look forward to it.
Laura, what did you think?
Hi, I read it 2 years ago, so I was like trying to quickly flip through it today to like trying to remember what happened in the book. So I only got through the first half, so I need to be reminded on what happens in the second half. But I love how in dystopian literature it just seems so far-fetched, but it's so interesting with this and The Handmaid's Tale. It just reminds you that like democracy is something that we work at, and it's not like you just kind of assume that like this is the way our society is always going to be. We're always going to be not having, like North America countries not having a dictator, but it's just those little, it's like the death by 1,000 cuts. It's just those little incremental things of taking away that you don't notice. Like, I feel like with this quarantine, it was all at once. So it's like, that's why we're all in shock. But it's like in the States, it's those little civil rights that are just like slowly taken away that you don't even notice. And you think, oh, someone's crazy, like her friend Jackie, who was like crazy speaking up about it. You don't realize that you lose all of your rights until they're all gone. But it just comes in those little quick, little long-term increments.
I think you're absolutely right. And I mean, if you look at abortion in the States, I think there's quite a few states that, whether you agree with it or not, it's like a lot of people think it's a right that a woman should have. So as the law changes on that, it's kind of what you're talking about right there.
Where did I just go? I don't know.
Heather, what did you think?
Well, I think her name was Laura, but she mentioned the role that Jackie played in the novel, and I really liked that character that we didn't see her. Am I still on mute? No.
Oh, no, you're good. You're good.
We didn't see her. You know, we weren't hearing from her directly. It was all of these remembrances that in the beginning of the book, and then we meet her. And there was just, you know, I felt like I was flashing back to those people in my life that were that Jackie, and sort of thinking about how important it is to listen to them. And particularly reading this as, you know, COVID was launching throughout the country. So anyway, that was my thought on that.
It definitely felt like strange timing. Becky?
Hi.
Hello.
Yeah, I agree with like with the last speaker, what you said. Like, this was kind of a stressful book to read right now, just because of what's going on in the world. But this was also part of why I rated it 4 stars out of 5, because I really, I thought I had some very visceral emotional reactions to reading it. There were so many scenes where I was reading stuff and it was just like very infuriating to imagine an America where that was something that could be happening to women. I think it was Laura who spoke a few minutes ago and said that like a lot of times in dystopian novels, things feel far away, or they feel like it's way out in the future, or it couldn't happen to us. And this was a novel, or, you know, this was a story that felt very much like this felt close, like this could happen, or you can see the little small things, how they all added up for it to take place. And so I think that emotionally, I had a lot of strong reactions to this book, and that's why I rated it 4 out of 5 stars.
Thank you. Carol Ann, what did you think? Carol Ann, where are you? Carol Ann, can you hear me? Okay, we're going to come back to Carol Ann in a minute. We're going to go to Sarah right now. Sarah, can you hear me?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Well, I actually really like the book. I would say a 4 out of 5. But having read The Handmaid's Tale, on one side, I was glad that it was like on a similar pattern. On the other side, some things were just too similar. And like the way the main character was reasoning and going through these changes. But I really like the idea of using like the role of voice, just reasoning on the voice, on the role the voice can have. On the other side, as a non-native English speaker, I had some troubles reading all the technical scientific part, because for me it was a nightmare. I didn't understand all of the things. So yeah, that part is kind of blurry for me right now. But yeah, in the end, I would say that I didn't appreciate that much the similarities with The Handmaid's Tale. I think she could have used it so much more about being without a voice. But I like the metaphor with it, so yeah.
All right. Jamie, you're next.
Is it on? Yeah. I just wanted to add to that when they're talking about the dystopia, it's like, because I read this book probably end of December, early January. And at that point, if someone asked me whether that's more likely or to have a pandemic, I would probably have said being silenced or women's rights being taken away is more likely. But we have a pandemic. So it just really did put into reality of how easily things can happen that you don't think will happen. And like you said, just hit close to home.
Absolutely, you're totally right. Denise?
I really liked the casual way that they showed it's not just the people losing the rights, it's all the people they can get to say, well, that's not so bad, or that's okay. Like her teenage son, it started off, yeah, it's a required class. Yeah, don't make a big deal out of it, Mom. And by the middle of the book, he had become this appalling toad who I think would have happily turned her in for anything until he had a chance. And it was kind of a little bit, this part was a little bit overdrawn, I thought, where they contrasted him to the girlfriend who got all the penalties for their involvement, and then he suddenly had a change of heart. I didn't care for that part, but the casual way they led up to it, where he just sort of enjoyed moving from the kid role into the I'm a man, so I'm better than you, Mom role. I thought that was the most chilling part. I really liked that part.
Yeah, I had a problem with him. We can further explore him very shortly. He was my least favorite character. So many of you want to speak. I've got 3 more people who want to talk about this question, and then we'll move on. So don't put your hand up for this question if you haven't already. Veronica, what did you think? And Veronica, I've lost you. I don't know how that works. I don't even see Veronica on here anymore. Okay, we'll come back to Veronica. Kelly?
Hi.
Hi.
Can you hear me?
We can.
I just wanted to reflect on what the 2 previous callers had mentioned about the son and how he basically drank the lemonade. I was horrified when her little girl was so proud of not having spoken for a whole day. That just sent chills down my back, that not only could the boy buy into it, but the daughter also into that system.
Yeah, you're right. That was a hard part to read. Lisa, what did you think?
So I just put in a message a little while ago that I read the book like a month ago, and my husband will often say to me, you're chattering, stop talking, you're talking too much. If you keep talking, I'm going to go sleep in the other room, that kind of stuff. And I think that as women and as daughters, we've often heard that we're supposed to be quiet and, better to be seen and not heard kind of ideas. And it really, when I was reading the book, led me to this idea of how possible it could be to legislate a society in which women are seen and not heard. And it's almost like it's gone back in time to 100 years earlier. The other thing that I wanted to just comment is I'm in Northern Ontario right now in Canada, and because we are around the world and we're making a community, is there a possibility that when people speak, we could say where we're from and just have some idea?
Yeah, no, that's a great idea. I love it. Let's do that. Thank you for your comment as well. And I'm sorry, I muted you. Go ahead.
Sorry, I was just going to say thank you for leading us.
Okay, Veronica, I'm going to give you a chance to talk again if you can hear me. Yeah, I don't know what's working. Val, can you hear Veronica?
Cannot. I can see her, but I can't hear you. Are you using headphones? Can you maybe hold the mic closer to your mouth? Is that better?
So I can hear you, but like very, very, very lightly.
You hold it like right here. No, not at all. Go on to someone else.
I can't hear you. I'm sorry. Veronica's one of our hosts from Oklahoma City. Anyways, we will move on. I actually want to do a book giveaway right now. Maybe we can do that and then we can come back to Veronica and see if we can hear her. So the first question we have that is so this one's going, I'll do this one. This is going to our Canadian audience. I think you've probably seen it on social media. It's an advanced copy, although I should figure out when it's coming out. Some of the books we're giving away today, there might be a delay in mailing them just because the publishers aren't in their office. So just so you know that could happen. But so if you're a Canadian, you can answer this question and then you could win a copy of this. And Missy will be, to win the copy, you just type the answer in the chat window. And then Missy will be picking at random one of the answers from, because I'm sure you'll all know the answer really quickly. So the question for this book is, what's the full name of Jean's lover? Full name, not just his first name. All right. So we will now, sorry if you can hear my son absolutely losing his mind downstairs. I have no idea what's going on. All right, we'll move on to the next question. And I'm going to copy it and put it in. You'll see, you all know the answer. All right. So I'm going to post it to everybody, and I will also read it aloud. It says, we speak more than 16,000 words a day, and the women in this book speak only 100 words. What would it be like for your right to speak to be taken away? How would you voice your thoughts? How would you use your daily quota of words? So again, we'll use the hand functionality, and I will mute myself because of my child and go directly to Alex.
Hi, can you guys hear me? Okay, so I'm from Atlanta, and that my job literally would not be possible. Like I work for a management consulting firm, and I work with the sales team. So we literally are talking to people on the phone all day long. Like my job literally wouldn't be possible without that many words. So it would probably be a lot harder to do my job. I would have to attempt to do everything that I do on a daily basis with just email, which isn't always possible. And as sad as it is, I think that Sonia was able to really figure out how to express herself using as few words as possible. And I think that would kind of have to be the way to figure it out, but again, it'd be very hard.
Alex, I have to ask you about the background.
So it's actually my office. And we do like different contests every day with like my teams at work, of like who has like the funniest background or like the coolest background or whatever. Yes, just a picture of my office during one of our all team meetings.
Okay, that's very cool.
I did think, who are all these people? Why are they not distancing?
Yeah, there's more than 5 people there. All right, well, thank you for your comments as well. Linda, what did you think?
Okay. It's not possible. I mean, I think I would be punching people in the throat. I'd be so angry. I mean, because you can't even use sign language, you know, in this world, in the Vox world. You can't, but not, and the woman that just spoke before me, it was saying that she couldn't do her job. Well, you wouldn't even have the opportunity to have that job. All the women were taken out of the workforce, except, and maybe this is later on in the thing, they refer to some of the women teachers. I'm guessing those are the home economics teachers and that kind of thing, but still, they're set at a different limit or whatever, but I could not make it through an hour without 100 words. I'd be tasing myself all day long.
Aren't we lucky that we have all the technology we have right now? Tamara?
Oh, hi, can you hear me?
We can.
Okay, great. Well, as the other lady said, like I'm actually, it goes against my profession. I'm a teacher. So I can't fathom, I don't know, unless I learn how to sign, students would have to learn how to sign. It would be quite frustrating to be on that type of silent platform in my line of work, especially too. And yeah, and just having, like, similar to now. I think it's quite an inauspicious time where we're under this quarantine. So it was like a verbal quarantine in that book. So we're kind of in a physical quarantine where we can have little, if any, contact or very limited contact with people. So we're isolated that way. But I would just feel very, to have my voice in a way be limited to such a low number. I wouldn't be able to do my job. And it would be just isolating. I think it would be very, very bad for mental health, everything.
Yeah, I see some of the comments talking about how you weren't like, because I actually thought that too. I'm like, oh, well, as long as everybody had new sign language, then we'd get by. But apparently, like, that would be forbidden as well, and you probably wouldn't have a job. So.
Yeah, and I think that's the whole point of the book, where what irked me is like, like most professions need to have the ability to speak. So that's why they got rid of, in the book and Vox, they got rid of half the workforce, because, well, how are they going to do their jobs if they can only speak 100 words a day?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Tanya, what did you think?
Hi, can you hear me?
We can hear you.
I totally agree with everything set up to now. And the other thing that I was thinking about, especially with the little daughter, was just how quickly everything that's been achieved can be erased in less than a generation. Because if you can't teach the little ones how to read and write, right? Like for the mother, she had some of that knowledge. If she somehow could manage to sneak in something, like, she could still use those skills. But if those are not passed down, it's just very quick. It's just so quick to, like, 100% erase everything that had been achieved just like a few months or a year before that, which I thought was just really scary.
Abby, I'll let you go next.
Okay, can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay. Well, I was going back to the original question, thinking I actually work for Girl Scouts in a sort of recruiting membership capacity. So my job would be done over, because first of all, not being able to speak means I can't share I can't bring in new people, but I can't even imagine an organization like any kind of a girl empowering organization would be allowed to continue. If we can't speak and we can't, that's contrary to the mission, is to empower girls. So that as I read that, I was thinking, well, that would be the end of my career, and no storytelling, no, nothing like that. So I can't imagine living like that, or having my daughters be a part of that world.
When we compare it to today and we talk about being like socially isolated, we can talk, obviously, but in that time, if you couldn't voice, even though you were allowed to go out and see your friends, what would be the point? Like, I think that was actually covered in the book, right? That the social interaction was gone, because they tried to have dinner parties at the start, but then they were so ridiculous. All right, Rhonda.
I just had a comment though too, that because we've seen the change. See, the lady there previously talked about how the changes, the mother could still do some of the things that she had learned, but the longer that becomes, the more influenced we are by our educators. They were taught that in school. The young daughter was so excited because she was winning this prize. And so we're so influential by what we're being told and what the government is telling us to follow, that it can be lost. And it's scary, like even now with what we're dealing with, we're so trusting in what we're being told, and we're following. We're sheep following because we're being told to. And in the book, that's what was happening, is everyone was following what they were being told because they trusted it. And you could see that happening with the younger generations. And had it continued, that daughter would have grown up and raised her daughter or her child to follow those same beliefs because she didn't know any differently.
Yeah, you're right. Renee?
Hi, everybody. I'm from outside of Philadelphia. So I was disappointed that the book didn't have the time or the space to talk about what happened in her relationship with her children and her husband by only being able to use 100 words. Obviously, she did this book quickly and there were a lot of issues to cover, but it seems, if I would think about not my career necessarily, but even how I would want to be in relationship with someone or have someone understand who I was or how I was feeling, to be limited in that number of words would be very difficult. And that would have been an interesting place for them to explore, because never, at least as I recall it in the book, does their relationship seem to falter by her inability to speak to him and communicate. I mean, their relationship is on the rocks, but it was never pointed to the fact that she didn't have enough words to tell him how she was feeling or to have a relationship with him.
Laurel?
Hi, I'm Laurel. I'm from Richmond Hill, Ontario, and I do agree. I noticed that even though their relationship was very rocky, they were still on a quite same level playing field, the two original couple. To go back on that question, I'm a music teacher, and to be limited in words would be so hard, because words bring me so much joy, and so does music as well. I felt the book was really good, and I do agree with some of the other people too, how it was really infuriating how they would give the boys free education and stuff in order to follow the rules. You can find how rewards and prizes could really change someone's outlook on democracy or world leaders.
Thank you. So we are all good for that question now. So we're going to move on. We're going to give away a book. Val, do you want to give away one of the ones that you have? I think that's for the Americans online.
No, I do. Yes. All right. If you're from the States, you can answer this question and have a chance to win Truths I Never Told You, which is a news book by Kelly Rimmer, who was our February author. This is due out mid-April. So if you're from the US, you can answer this question from Erin.
Oh, from me.
Oh, from me. No, I have the questions too. I'll ask it. All right. Where does the author of March's book, Christina Dalcher, where does she live?
All right, thank you, Val. We'll let those answers come in on the chat window. And Missy has actually just posted that, and those two answers are all wrong. Maybe this is a hard question. Sorry, I know where she lives because I asked her when I was talking to her, but there are some right answers now. Missy will let you know through a private message through the chat window, and she'll ask for your mailing address. So if you give that to her, we'll make sure that you get the copy of the book. All right. So the next question, I've just pressed enter on that, but there is a lot of answers coming in. So it is, humans differ from other members of the animal kingdom since we have language. If we take away language, what separates us from other animals? Would we be capable of rational thought? Would we survive? I'll let everybody, oh, Linda, you're very quick. Go ahead.
Sorry, I just, it's the first time I've ever been here, so I guess I have a lot to say about everything.
Linda, we love it.
Well, the animals aren't just separated by this. One of the questions, and maybe this is it, because I remember looking through them and thinking that, what about a deaf and dumb person? Are they not capable of thought or action or being creative just because they can't speak or they can't hear? They find another way to do it. Now, in their case, they came up with sign language, which in this book is illegal. The two women in the grocery store get arrested for signing to their children. But even that, somebody would come around it. So as far as going, comparing it to animals that don't have a language, there are animals that might know how to build tools. We can have rational thought and build tools, and it might be one of the, if we were all struck dumb and forgot how to write and read, we would still find a way to communicate how to build a bridge. if we needed to, you know, cross the river. I mean, that's just my opinion.
A lot of people are saying in the chat window that that we underestimate the ability of animals to communicate. So who knows? Brittany, what did you think?
Hi, I'm here in North Carolina. Can you hear me? Yes.
We can hear you.
Great. Okay. I just don't think that realistically we would be able to even stop people from speaking for any extended period of time. I feel like we figured it out in the first place, however many years ago, right? And I don't think we could continue on like even existing if we weren't able to speak in the way that we do. And I think we would probably figure it out real quick how to get around whatever obstacles were put in our way to prevent us from communicating in the way that was most efficient.
And it's nice to see your face. She is one of my hosts that I've never met, so. Shyla, what did you think?
Hi, can you hear me?
We can.
Okay. I'm a teacher and I teach newcomer kids when they first come to Canada. So there's immediately that language barrier between me and the kids. So I would say that when you have that kind of limitation where you can't communicate verbally, it's kind of like your kind of survival instinct kicks in and you are able to communicate. You are able to use your body language. You're able to use pictures. You are able to kind of work around it. So I think even if we aren't able to verbally communicate with one another, we still are able to relay what we want to one another.
Thank you for that. This question is not very popular. We don't have any more hands up for this one. But Cassie agreed with you, Shyla, if you can see that in the chat window. All right, we're gonna move on. Oh, now everybody wants to talk. Okay, Christy, what did you think?
Yes, hi, I'm in Newmarket, Ontario. I was just gonna add to the lady who just spoke just now. I think that it's true that as an evolutionary trait, like language and our thoughts become very much connected. And yes, it's true that we can leverage facial expression, body language to express ourselves, but more complicated thoughts and abstract ideas, that would become a challenge when we don't have language, especially to communicate those complex ideas. And I think that's a key differentiation between human beings and animals, is that we're able to use language to evolve our thoughts into more abstract ideas, things like religion, community, like nationality, borders. These things are a lot less related to survival, so to speak, but it's how we identify ourselves, like our and how we connect ourselves to the reality around us.
That's what one of the great things about doing these is that there's much smarter people than I on here that can tell you things like that. Lisa, what did you think?
First of all, I'm taking out my Sambuca to have a little toast and love to know what anybody else is having. And I just commented that the animals are not susceptible to COVID-19. So maybe they're doing something right, or maybe they've done something right. We all get certain privileges in this world, and maybe that's their privilege this time, and maybe they can give us a message about how we can be strong, how they're being strong. They communicate with each other and they let us know when they're hungry, or when they want to go for a walk, or when they want to cuddle, or whatever. So maybe we just have to listen to them a little bit better in whatever language they're using.
Thank you for that. All right, Allison, you're going to be the last one on this question, so I'm going to unmute you here and lower your.
Oh my gosh.
Hi.
Hello.
So I'm from Oshawa, Ontario.
Hey guys, and I just wanted to mention something that I read recently about different ways of thinking. So I think most people, this is what I read, actually think in, so when we're thinking about doing something, we're thinking about it in our head, we hear a voice, it's, I'm gonna go for a walk, I'm gonna go and do this, but there actually are, like there's a smaller population of people that don't think like this. They actually don't hear words, they don't hear their own voice in their head, and they just see abstract thoughts. So they just see food and then they go and they get their food. They don't have this narrative in their head. And I thought that was really, really interesting, because if they're able to think like that, maybe there's a different way of thinking. Maybe we would adapt to think like them. And they are a part of our society and they do function. So I just thought that was interesting. Maybe we would adapt to some way if we were unable to think in sentences and communicate in that way.
Yeah, absolutely. Totally adapt. I mean, well, that's what we do. We adapt, right? Laura wants to know what that's called. Do you know?
I'm not too sure. I actually just read this recently. You can look it up. It should be on Google somewhere. Yeah, I'm not like a scientist or a brainiac or anything, so I'm just letting you guys know some information that I read about recently, and you guys can look into it if you like to.
Perfect, thank you. I'm going to do a book giveaway before we go to the next question. So this is for the Canadian market again. It is The Henna Artist. We are supposed to be doing an event in, we were supposed to be doing it in April. It has obviously been postponed. We will be doing it probably in September now, I imagine, but it'll be downtown Toronto for anybody who lives in the GTA. And this author will be joining us there. So this is called The Henna Artist, and very interesting author, born in India and raised in the United States. So the question to win this book, which I need to go and find, is what is Jean's job? And again, to answer, just put in your answer in the chat window, and Missy will message you once she's chosen a winner. All right. Moving on to the next question for the discussion questions we have here. It says, our learned behavior is patterned after what we witness. This is exemplified by the drawings that Sonia makes. Her father and her brother are depicted as much larger than she or her mother is. What other things do we learn to do unconsciously? I'm going to post that down here so that you have the physical question. And Tamara, I will go to you first.
Okay. I think with the way that Sonia may see it, she may not thinking this directly because she's 6 years old. At this point in time with the new rules, that there's a hierarchy. So she sees that the men are right now during this time are up here on a pedestal. They're doing the work. They're doing more of the talking. They're doing more of all the work. And whereas the women are they're embedded into the smaller zone because they can't talk as much. They're very limited. So I think she sees there's like this for a child, and I have young children myself, and I teach children that this is their perception. That's just how they understand it. It's not really a conscious thing or not a cognitive thing per se, but what I think it's just she's seeing what's happening. The men are doing all these things, they're big, whereas the women, they're not doing these things, so they're small. That's how it would be. And children they see very much in black and white, and that's how I think she's seeing it.
It's interesting how quickly it happens as well, because that time frame in the book is only a year. She's only had that watch or the band on her wrist for a year.
Yeah, and it becomes her new normal. It's like a new normal, just kind of like this quarantine right now is becoming kind of everyone's new normal in a way for a little while. So that's where she's kind of like learn. And I think children they tend to be more resilient, more adaptable than some adults because their minds are still very elastic. They're still developing. So they're just taking things more as it comes, whereas we have a little bit more to us in that way developmentally. So I think that's why it's just very much, world is very black and white to a kid.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Laura, what did you think?
I found it really interesting that we can default the word like the crazy always bugs me. Like there's these gendered slurs that we don't even realize. Like when women are called hysterical or crazy, like her son Steven was saying, "Mom, you're being crazy." I had to stop watching the show Below Deck, the reality show about sailing, because the men were always calling the women crazy. And the fact that we use these words towards women, and like even in terms of like just like seeing the political races that are happening in the States in terms of what defines leadership, and just it just still seems like that just men and women can just like are just having a hard time with seeing a woman be electable. So I thought it's really interesting that it's just these things that we can catch ourselves not even realizing that can be a gendered term. Like, and also you go to buy clothes, and like when kids' clothes say like I'm gonna be a hero and I'm a princess, and it's those little words that are on different boys and girls clothing that we don't even realize that are just from such a young age setting us into that path of being gendered.
I didn't even think about it until you brought it up, but the word crazy, when you think of a woman being called crazy versus a man, it actually brings like a different thought to your mind. Laurel, what did you think?
I also want to talk about how they marketed the bracelets different to women, and how kids how they marketed how the device was a bracelet, and how you could get it in different colors and with gemstones, and how the children really caught on to that, and they almost thought it was a toy. I thought that was a very interesting aspect to the book, on how kids thought it was like a piece of entertainment and didn't really see outside of that.
I was actually wondering what color I would choose when I read that part, which is a little sick. Fatima?
Hey all. Yeah, so I think that like it's an interesting question, but I do think that like a lot of what we learn is not necessarily from verbal. Right? Think about like someone raised about like if you're in a country where you don't understand a language, like you learn very quickly which side of the street to cross on, kind of like how people are behaving with each other. Like, do people shake hands? Do people make eye contact? Like you come up against it whether or not you understand it. And then it's more in terms of like how long does it take you to actually put it into your brain. And I think a lot of the points about like gender stereotypes or gender roles that we learn, even racism or some systemic biases that people have, like that's based on our exposure to what's around us, and not necessarily somebody saying, hey, you should discriminate this person based on the color of their skin, or women are inferior because, right? It's more just in terms of how you perceive things, and the implicit clues and the unspoken things in which we say and how we behave to each other, that really informs a lot of like how we think, and then how we react. And I think another good point is like even just in terms of like when you get scared of something, like it's not necessarily something that's verbal, but like say you like there's a thunderstorm or something that comes off, and your body just reacts, like you have an emotional response. Like it's not necessarily related to words, but it's like how your body, how your mind reacts to the cues around you in your environment.
Denise, what did you think about that?
Sure, unmuted. I thought it was interesting that they very quickly learned that women had no power, but they could create a little fake power structure by turning on each other. So I saw the daughter watching the adult women, and she was learning that women have no power. Women aren't trustworthy, because if you're doing something, it's likely to be, there's not going to be a sisterhood that says, yeah, I saw you get away with that, good deal. They'll be turning you in so that they can grab a crumb of praise from the people who have the power. I thought that was almost the most clever thing with the bracelets. Yeah, it kept them from talking, but it clearly marked them all as women. So they were immediately the inferior group who had to sort of dance through the maze, be the most homemaker, be the least talker, be the biggest tattletale in order to be the best, which I think everybody sort of internally wants to be. So I saw that if it went out for a second year and a third year, to where there'd become almost a substructure of the purest of women versus the women who were struggling more at it. So I saw that as the daughter looked like she was smart, could learn really easily. I saw her learning that message as well. So that whoever said earlier, she'll raise her daughter the same way. She won't just raise her the same way, but she'll raise her with, and here's how you really get ahead as a woman, even though women can't get ahead at all in that environment. Oh, Oklahoma City.
Thank you. When we were talking to the author, I just thought I would mention that she had said one of her biggest regrets was that she didn't make Reverend Carl Reverend Carla. So goes to your point about she thought it would be really great if that Reverend had been female. Linda?
A couple of things. The reference to the drawing, and if that happened today while we are allowed to use words, and somebody drew a man with, say, big hands, this can be a trigger to some teachers, some therapists, to say, this man might be hurting this child because that's what she sees, these big hands. So I mean, there's a lot of interpretations with that drawing, and I'm not sure that it's getting quite to the point that she wanted to make. But again, she only had a limited time, which is unfortunate because, like has been said before, there's so many things that could have been explored. Another thing is the marriage between these two. Everybody is assuming that because the mother can only speak 100 words, that the father has no responsibility or will take no responsibility in teaching their female children. And Patrick seemed to be one of those patient, understanding, helpful people. Yeah, their marriage was breaking up. I mean, that was even before she started on this project. There were some references to that. But he still was very sympathetic in, when Jean has her breakdown on the back porch, and he's trying to muffle her body to absorb some of that shock that he thinks is coming, because she's already used up, it's 12:01 or something, and she's already used up her 100 words. So I think we're assuming that all men would behave as, the pure movement wanted them to, and be, Beaver Cleaver's dad. And I think there are some that are empathetic enough and smart enough, and that would encourage that. We also wouldn't be wiping out a race, because the males, the XX chromosomes, can go on talking and doing whatever they want, and building and reading and writing and having their own village. But anyway, I just wanted to, in response to some of the things that were mentioned.
Thank you we have one more. So one more answer on this question, and then we'll move to the next. Kay, what did you think?
I was just thinking about the competition among women as housewives and homemakers, the whole Martha Stewart movement a while ago. I think, she's tapered off, but that was all about being the perfect housewife. I mean, if you look at some of her suggestions on doing stuff, like, meh. And I think there would be women that say, yeah, I've got to be that perfect, and I'll tie up my napkins and I'll do all that. And others like me, they just go, nah, it's peanut butter and jelly will do just fine. So I was just thinking of that.
Thank you. All right, ladies, we're going to move on to the next question. But I am going to give away a book to our UK members that are on here. And it's obviously very late in the UK or Europe, if you're here from Europe. But this is a book that will be mailed out. And I don't have a copy of it because they couldn't get it to me in time. But it is called The House at Silvermore. And it looks like historical fiction, but I have no idea. I apologize. But the question to win that, and we'll be doing that again through the chat window, and you can just put your answer in there. And the question is, what is the name of the movement that has been introduced into the country? So Missy will let you know if you have won. Our next question for discussion is, do you blame Stephen for his actions? Tell us how you felt about him. Did you feel remorse for him after he realized what he had done and went in search of his girlfriend, Julia? This is a very difficult question for me. Oh, see, all the hands are going to come up for this one. All right, Chelsea, what did you think?
Hi. I had a lot of problems with the whole Stephen thing, as I think most people did, because, well, he was annoying, and I didn't blame her for slapping him. I'm sorry, but it was hard not to restrain myself. But I'm also a high school teacher, which is one of the reasons I had a big problem with him and his story, because I thought it could have been so much more well done. Because as a high school student and a teenage boy, I thought, I mean, it almost like the book didn't give teenagers enough credit, because I find them very difficult to, brainwash or try to convince of something. Like, they're very, and I love that about them, because they question everything, right? Which is great. So I found it very hard to believe that he, like, young people would probably be a little more resistant to that, I would hope. But more so on the other end of it, just like the quickness of him completely switching when Julia was sent away. Like, it was like a complete 180. And I was kind of upset, because I thought it would be very, very interesting to see kind of a complex deprogramming of kind of like his cult-like mentality. And I thought a deeper exploration of the psychological effects of that would have been interesting to read. But it was just like, no, when she was gone, he was completely changed or went back. So I was a little disappointed there.
Thank you very much for your answer. And I love your bookshelf. Sorry, I just had to mention that because it's all color coded, of course. Tamara, what did you think?
You know what? I really had a lot of mixed feelings towards this boy. I was very angry with him, and yes, he was old enough to realize the consequences, but I also take it at an angle, being a 17-year-old. He probably developed a lot of inner psychological problems that went really missed, that the book didn't really delve deep into. So I think being part of this movement, like him being the oldest, and he knew of a world where all of a sudden women had all this freedom, and then all of a sudden, wait, what's going on here? So so he was just a very confused person, I think. And yeah, but at the same time though, the way that he behaved toward his mother, he should have just honestly, he had no respect. I don't know what, I can't say enough of how lack of disrespect. So yeah, her slap was perfectly justified. But what I was going to say is that he was old enough to understand that this wasn't right. He should have kind of owned up to his actions. And I think these things that happened to his girlfriend, I think at the end of the day made him realize how awful and how terrible he had become, where he just did this whole 360 to his attitudes towards women. And what really was disgusting was how they televised this thing at his high school. They televised this shame. It made me think of medieval times, where they would parade the women on the street, where they would be accused of witchcraft and they get thrown. They were stoned, and even in recent history, in the Middle East, women who would be cheated on their husbands or they were accused of infidelity would be literally stoned. So it made me think of this. I'm like, this is being televised, this public shame and the shaving of the head. It just was like so unsettling and cultish. And the fact that he actually fell for that, it was just, oh my God, like it was just, he just became this really terrible little human being. But at the same time, I'm mixed feelings. He was probably just deeply psychologically scarred, because how can you live one way and then all of a sudden, because he's still not completely an adult yet. He's still immature. He's still a child there. There's still the child part that didn't understand what the heck was happening. So he kind of had to follow the crowd, as it were. So it had a lot to do with, I think, that teenage peer pressure too.
Veronica, James, I'm going to go to you since we haven't had any success yet.
Hi, can you hear me now?
I can hear you.
Okay, good. I switched headset, so I think that solved the problem. So hi, I'm from Oklahoma City. I'm one of the hosts, and glad to see so many ladies here tonight. Cheers. So I was really upset with the son, the way he was treating his mother, and it kind of brought back a little bit of the machismo from Latin American countries sometimes, where even the children or sons can get away with that. It reminded me of that. I really did not like him at all and thought he was old enough to know better. But at the same time, I knew he was being brainwashed from even before the whole movement started when they were introducing the religious studies class, because he needed that for college prep classes, and they were just planting seeds. So you can kind of understand how you get someone where their adolescent mind molding is happening, and you can just take someone the wrong way or the right way or the wrong way. And he definitely got a lot of brainwashing. And when you think about people that go into cults, or when they realize, well, I didn't know that they were doing this to me. And it was really hard to understand, or just to not sympathize a little bit once you realize that there's a lot of brainwashing that happens at a young age, or even through religious studies that become cults. You're just trying to please, especially as a teenager, when you're just trying to please others. And I think he was just trying to get ahead, and the prizes, I think the scholarships or getting married at 18 was like $10,000 or something ridiculous like that. That could sound very lucrative, but at the same time, when you see the guard that got married young and had a wife, and I'm not sure if he had a daughter or was going to have a daughter, and he knew he didn't want to be a part of that future for his child, and he was helping Jeannie with, trying to get out of the, getting ahead with that experiment. So you could see where someone can do right, and even in the times where things are wrong.
Yeah, you're talking about Petrovsky, I believe his name was. And
yes.
He had a daughter, and he couldn't bear the thought of her growing up in that environment. Completely. I'm going to go to Alex Johnson, because I don't think we've heard from you yet.
Oh, no, you have. You can go to someone else if they haven't.
No, go ahead. It's fine.
I was just going to say, I feel like the sentiment was kind of discussed already. It's kind of just like Stockholm Syndrome. Like, I think he was trying so hard to fit in because he liked the girl who felt like everything that was going on was right. So I think he was trying so hard just to kind of fit in with his friends and what he was seeing, that he started to believe that it was true, and not even necessarily realizing how it was affecting his mom and his little sister until they took Julia away. So I don't know that I necessarily had empathy. I feel like that was kind of towards the part where she started getting to the end of the book really quickly. It was all of a sudden Stephen was missing. All of a sudden he was on TV. All of a sudden he was in that room. So I just feel like it all transpired very quickly. So I'm not really sure how I feel about him in the end.
Fair enough. A lot of conversation in the chat window about Patrick the father and his kind of like role with Stephen, because everybody's wondering why he took such a back seat to the way that their son was reacting when he had full voice, if you will. Linda, what did you think?
A couple of things. One, he reminded me, if you know Sound of Music, you know Rolf, the boyfriend, I am 16 going on, you know that song? Okay, and then the boyfriend, and then he turns all Nazi, and as the family's trying to escape, he blows the whistle, literally, to get his troops up to, you know, arrest him when they're trying to get to Switzerland. Anyway, that's what he reminded me of, was this caricature of Rolf. But I also think, you know, back to the rewarding a type of behavior to promote it, like rewarding the no words with the ice cream. She was all, Sonia was excited because she got the ice cream for 0 words. Well, I think part of the reward for Stephen's Go Pure movement radicalization was that he was one of the however many that were chosen to go to her school and demonstrate what would happen if you spoke more than 100 words. And I think that was probably a Benny for him. So he's being all that in a bag of chips with his buddies, and he wants to go further. So I think it was promoting the men in the males. The child's brain is not fully formulated until 21, so he's still undeveloped, but he doesn't know that. He thinks he's a man, and he's acting the way he's being taught in school to act, and he's being rewarded accordingly. But I just couldn't get that caricature of Rolf out of my head. Anyway, that's all I had to say.
Lots of people are commenting that that's a great comparison.
No, are they?
We have 4 more people wishing to comment on this specific question, and I'm going to cap it there. So hold your questions or your points for the next questions, if you will. Abby, go ahead.
Oh, shoot. Can you hear me?
Yeah,
oh, you unmuted me. I think I have to unmute myself. Sorry. And I'm from North Carolina, by the way. So, hey, Brittany, yes, I'm from Wake Forest, but I spend a lot of time in Fayetteville for my job. So,
have you been to the book club there?
No, I'm thinking I might have to try it, but
absolutely.
So what I would say, I've been typing all these notes as everyone was talking, because I've worked with a lot of teenagers and worked with teenage boys, not professionally, with like when my kids were in high school. And kids at that age are so easily swayed. And I understand what the teachers were saying about how hard it is to influence. But if you're trying to influence them to not do something, it's really hard. But if you're reinforcing something that makes them feel better about themselves or makes them feel they're more important, then it's much easier to influence teenagers to be like, yes, you're better and you're more important and you are special, and you know, all of those things. I think it's much easier to sway an insecure kid when you're telling them that they are better, rather than saying what you're doing is not positive and you should be doing something different. But it also reminded me, everyone talked about, you know, I reminded me of colonial times when people would be put in the stocks in New England and you'd be sitting in the town square locked in this, you know, in the stocks, and people would come by and throw rotten fruit and vegetables at you and make fun of you. So it was, you know, it was a way of society using public humiliation to discourage behavior that was out of the norm. So that was what I had thought of.
Thank you. I'm going to go to Renee now.
Hi. So like many of you, I saw the comparison to Nazi Germany right away. You know, all of the youth movement in Nazi Germany were normal kids day to day who, you know, completely got caught up in a new norm. But I really felt strongly that Stephen, not just when the father, Patrick, excuse me, not just when Stephen was going off, but even way before that, when all of this new world order happened, it disturbed me that there was no discussion in the family about what does this mean and what does respect for one another mean in this new norm, and how are we going to be together with one another in this new norm. I think that the parents both abdicated their responsibilities until there was a crisis, and then one didn't have the words and one chose not to use them. So I was also very uncomfortable with how okay she was, in that, maybe it was because it was a rushed part of the book, but at the end, and she's trying to, sabotage the whole project, and she sees Stephen on the screen, her kid is on the screen, and she's just kind of goes about her day, with only a passing comment. That was very uncomfortable for me. And the whole Sophie's choice about which children do I choose and which world do I go on with, do I choose my daughter over my son? And, that just, I could not relate to. I could never do a Sophie's choice, even in that kind of a setting. So there were parts of it, and again, maybe because she was rushed, but there were parts of it that I really thought just didn't ring true for somebody who was a mother, whether or not she had a voice.
I don't disagree with you. I found that part, like I was going through the thought process of it and just thought it was crazy of trying. And I mean, she had 3 boys that didn't get much airtime at all. I mean, other than Stephen, but the twins were like, they were like just left to their own devices. Rachel, you're the last for this question. What did you think?
Oh, hi. Hi, I'm from Burlington, Ontario. Yeah, really agree with what Renee said. I think it was interesting because for me, she lost her daughter, but she also lost her son to the movement. And I totally agree that he was young and he was impressionable. And I don't think it's fair to sort of consider that he wasn't brainwashed, because he was. But having said that, I think, again, it's just the unsatisfactory ending, because I think as a mother, you would feel a lot more emotional turmoil. Certainly at the end, the idea of seeing her kid on TV and the fact she sort of brushed it off, and the idea she wanted to run off to Italy, but she was only taking Sonia. And the fact that, as you say, she never even mentioned the twin boys. I mean, it's funny, I tuned into the session you did last week with interviewing the author, and I don't think the author had kids. I don't know if that had a bearing on how she wrote it, that she wasn't able to draw from that personal experience. But I think there's a lot more complicated emotions around, having children. Even if you don't like their behavior, they're your children, and you can't just walk away from them in the way that she does seem pretty clinical at the end.
I completely agree. All right, lady, thank you for all of the feedback on that question. We're going to do another giveaway. Val, to put you on the spot completely, are you ready?
I'm so ready. I've been ready. Okay, let me just say that these books that we have for the US, they are coming from our partners at Book Trib, so thank you to them. The next book we've got is by Hannah Mary McKinnon. It is called Sister Dear. It is another advanced reader's copy. This is not due out until May 26th. Hopefully we'll get it in your hands before then. So you'll still be reading an advanced copy. Just make sure I'm not answering or asking a question that Erin's already asked. Okay, so Canadians, get ready. No, Americans, get ready. Where does Jean consider moving? Which country?
That was very quick. Very quick. Very easy answer. Very, very easy question, rather. All right, so Missy will look after that, and we will continue with the questions. We're going to deep dive into Patrick here. And the question is, were you surprised by Patrick? Is it true that sometimes we don't know the person we think we should know best? So a little bit more examination on the dad. If you have any thoughts on that, please feel free to raise your hand. I did not, I actually liked the dad in the end. I thought that he ended up obviously being an okay guy. And I mean, she's also having an affair before any of this happens. So there's that comes into play. So I'd love to hear what you ladies think. Carol Ann, I think we had technical difficulties last time. Let's see if this works.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Yay! So I am webbing in from Mankato, Minnesota, but I lived for 32 years in Canada, having immigration from Scotland. So I'm so thrilled to be surrounded by my beloved Canadians on this too. I thought Patrick was very underwritten. I thought the relationship in general was very underwritten. He clearly was a very caring individual. Even when he found out about the affair, I thought he reacted to that much better than I think lots of people would. And I think the fact that they never communicated with each other about the fact that he was in the resistance and about her feelings, obviously this came from, previous to what had happened, because obviously there were some issues with the relationship. But again, there were so many things about the book that I feel like she didn't really explore, which made it very shallow. She wanted to get to the big idea about, the speculative fiction aspect of it that she, I think, missed out in a lot of things. And I think that relationship among many of them was really underwritten. So I wasn't really surprised by the big reveal at the end that he was in the resistance and did that. But I don't think she led up to it very well.
I'm muted. Lexi, what did you think?
Hey, yeah, can you hear me? This is weird. Excellent. No, I loved the fact that it wasn't revealed till the end, and that there were things throughout the book that he would have had to be a real idiot to not know something was going on. So, and I didn't believe that from how he was written. But I love that they left the whole reveal that he was part of the resistance until the end. I thought that was very true to life. You hear those stories from like World War II and stuff, where the couples are in their 90s before they actually say, oh no, I was down the garden every night, on the scanners and things, and the government told me to tell no one. So I liked that they didn't say anything.
I have to say I didn't catch on. You're like, oh, it's so easy. Yeah. I'm like, yeah, no, I had no idea.
Sorry.
All right, Kelly, what did you think?
I agree. I also like that part about Patrick. It made what he wasn't doing in terms of helping her through most of the book make sense, in that he was actually deep cover and had an eye to prize. It was more than just day by day.
Thank you. Kelly?
Am I muted?
No, you're good. Sorry, Kelly.
Okay.
You're good.
Okay, good.
I'm sorry. I got my name mixed up.
Okay.
You're like, did I just say that all to myself?
Yes.
We heard you. You're good. I'm sorry.
Awesome.
Allison, what did you think?
Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay, perfect. So I think this kind of goes back to when everyone was talking about Stephen as well, and how Patrick didn't really partake in his raising and didn't really help him in any way when this was all going on. We didn't really see the relationship there. I think it relates because how are you going to talk to your teenage son about what's going on and tell him that this is wrong when, like, can you really trust him? Like, can you really trust your teenager to, do what you think is right when everyone else in the country is telling him something different, right? And I think that, it makes a lot of sense that if Patrick is working behind the scenes, that he wouldn't necessarily want to tell his teenage son. He couldn't even tell his wife, I think that there was a lot of secrecy there because he was being very smart about how he could overcome all these challenges that were presented to him. And he was in a very difficult spot too, like his job, he's right there with the president. He's got all these people that are watching every move he's making. So I think for him to tell anybody, it would really have put his family in even more danger and made a lot of other people in that country be in a lot more danger.
Yeah, I agree with you, especially with this. Somebody had written in the chat window about his son being untrustworthy. So he had a lot of people he had to look out for. Becky, what'd you think?
Exactly.
Hey, can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Yeah, I realized before I didn't introduce where I was from. I'm from Knoxville, Tennessee. I'm the host of our chapter here. So glad to be joining the online group today. I agree with a lot of what you were saying, Allison. In fact, everybody has kind of picked up on some of the ideas that I could add to the discussion. I think that that his passivity reads differently once you do know that he had been part of the resistance and working undercover. You know, you kind of look back and it makes more sense, or you can understand, I think, for me anyway, where he might be coming from and not taking a more active role in maybe some of the things happening in his household, because he was like trying to walk this careful line of not wanting to rock the boat at home so he could be, staying under the radar to do this other work that he wanted to do. And so, I think you can maybe understand some of his decision-making process from that perspective. As a female reader, do I agree with it? No, I mean, I was very frustrated with his choices and his actions throughout the book. But I think knowing that at the end, kind of going back and viewing his character through the lens of like that dual role, at least I kind of read it differently.
Thank you. So Chelsea, we have 3 more people with answers for this question, and then we will move on to the next one. Chelsea, I'm gonna ask you next if you would like to talk.
Yeah, I completely agree with what you guys just said. I didn't even think of that before, that, he would be laying low if he's trying to make sure he's not going to get caught with his resistance. I also wondered how much his character was disserviced based on the fact that we were reading through Jean's perspective. And I feel like even when they started dating in college, she'd always talk about how boring she thought he was, or he was nice, or he wasn't very outspoken, and she was wrapped up in her affair. So how much is she really paying attention to her husband and what he is doing? And so I think that's why it came as such a surprise that he was part of the resistance. And I think that might have been why he was underwritten at points, because we were in her head and looking at the very little kind of opinion she had of him, I guess.
Cassie, what do you think?
Can you hear me?
We can.
Okay. Hi, I'm from Ohio. I haven't spoken yet, but so agreeing with that, and then back to what Becky said about Patrick, even though that he had that sort of what's the word, where he ended up being a hero in the end, but the whole time he wasn't speaking up and he wasn't saying anything to support her. And I think, yeah, in the long run, he was trying to keep it low and underground so that way he can work with the resistance. But I think in his family home and in that dynamic, he could have still told her about it. With the couple, was it Dell? Was that his name? They all knew, and their family seemed to function so well. And I think that he still could have supported her and let them know what he was doing, because then his sons may have seen that and followed in that direction. And Stephen could have had a completely different story if he would have, learned that from the beginning. So that's my point on that.
Thank you, Cassie. Lisa?
So I was going to say that I don't know if you can hear me.
I can hear you.
Okay. So I've been doing some family research and did some research recently on a great uncle of mine who I discovered was in the resistance during the Second World War in Europe and was in 3 different concentration camps. His biological son didn't know it. I don't think his first nor second wife knew it. He has been gone maybe 15 years now, and nobody knew it. And he chose, I guess, to never share the story with anyone. And I wonder if if he had chosen to share the story, what it would have been like, what he would have said. I wonder about her husband. What would he have said? Is this the experience of somebody who was in the, what would the experience have been like of somebody who was in the resistance at that time? What would they have said? What would they have said in hindsight? How would they tell their story? We don't know. Those kinds of books aren't being published. People who survived the Holocaust in Europe are publishing their stories at the end of their lives, but they're not publishing about them having been in the resistance. I mean, there is a few, like there's the Lilac Girls and there's some other women, but not from a man's point of view. And maybe they are, but we're just not reading them. And I'm just, that was something that really resonated for me, knowing my uncle's experience that he never shared. And I wonder if it had been similar to Patrick, going through a rough time, going through seeing that horror around him and not being able to say anything about what he was doing and being really alone and pretending to be somebody that he was not. I don't know. It's just thought.
And then having his wife in adulteress. Just
wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
All right, we're gonna give away another book now before we go on to the next question. I will do this one, which this is for, who is this for? Canada, right? Valerie and Missy?
Yes.
If you're a Canadian, please feel free to answer this question. In 5 Years by Rebecca Surley, and I probably just butchered her last name, but I just finished this book yesterday. It's a very quick read, very interesting. And the question that we will be asking for this is,
Number 6.
Number 6. Where is the cabin that Jean visited with her lover? So where is it actually located? And I did not know the answer to that offhand. Valerie had to tell me. So if you know that, then please go ahead and answer, and you can win a copy of that book. And we will move on to the next discussion question as well. And the next one is, were there any ideas of the Pure movement that you agreed with, and why? And you know, nobody's putting their hand up because I feel like everybody's like, no. I struggled to think of anything that was even remotely. Oh, thank you, Bailey.
So I obviously don't agree with the Pure movement, but I like the idea of being intentional about our words. As somebody who gets really stimulated with a lot of like chatter, I don't believe anything should be forced upon anybody, but I just love the concept of being intentional about our words and not just kind of rambling, because I see it as like noise pollution when people just talk for the sake of talking. So I think it's really cool to like, I don't believe anybody should wear bracelets. I just think it's cool if we all really think about like, what am I trying to say here? And I don't know, in business, it would make us more efficient if we're more concise. I don't know.
I love that.
With the Pure movement at all, but it's just a random tangent that I thought of.
I love that you had an answer, because literally we've done this meeting 3 times and nobody had any answers. So thank you for that. And I don't disagree. And I also think a lot of the stuff that's coming out of this pandemic is how many business meetings are unnecessary. So you're not wrong. Does anybody else have any other thoughts on that? Not a popular question. Val, do you want to give away a book?
Yes, I do. Okay, so we're going back to the US, to our US attendees and members here. We're going to go with this one, also courtesy of Book Trib. It is called Payback by Ronald S. Barack. He's a best-selling author. And it's a sequel to The Amendment Killer. Hopefully it is also a standalone. Don't have that insider info. But for this copy of Payback, the question is, hopefully it won't be as tricky as the last one. Maybe though. What is the nickname Jean and her lover have for the cabin that they visit?
I also did not know the answer to that.
This is for the US, to clarify. There are some questions. What's the nickname for the cabin that Jean and her lover visit for their romantic rendezvous, and for US attendees?
Thank you very much for that. This was one of my favorite questions we've asked. We'll move on in the discussion questions. And I've sent it to Loretta privately. Just a second. Did reading this book inspire you as a parent, as a citizen of your country, as your preferred gender, and how? So if you'd like to go ahead and raise your hand if you have anything to add to the conversation. Carol Ann, go ahead.
So I think one of the things, and again, I wish she had gone into this in more detail, but I definitely think, and someone mentioned this at the very beginning, it's kind of like the frog in the water, right? And they turn the water up bit by bit by bit until the frog doesn't realize it's in boiling water. So I think that one of the things she was making the point about that I really agree with is that we just allow things to happen, slowly have rights taken away, and then all of a sudden we're in a terrible situation. I mean, without getting political, obviously in the States right now, there's some situations going on that are a little troubling for women. And I think we're in a situation where we say, well, it doesn't really affect me, so I'm not going to be out in the streets. So as someone, as I said, who lived in Canada for a long time, grew up in Scotland, the healthcare situation in the States bamboozles me, that there are not riots in the streets about the fact that there's not healthcare for the most vulnerable or most people. So for example, that's just one example. But I think that we just, if it doesn't affect us personally, we tend not to really get involved in it. I think she was really making that point about who Jean was when she was younger. So that has really given me pause to say, what is going on? You know, there's kids in cages in Texas. What are we doing about that? We're not doing anything about that. So I think we have to be more intentional too about what's going on and really step up more than we do.
Thank you for that. Interesting that you say that, because when I talked to the author, you might have thought that she was a very, like a big feminist and stuff, but actually she wasn't really worried about the state of feminism or the state for women in any country, really. She's like, we're strong, and she was an American. So I thought that was interesting, because it could have really been, she said that people had coined her book as the Me Too book. Which she said she'd written it before then, so it certainly wasn't her intention. So, Alex, I'm going to go to you.
Cool. That was an interesting thought. I wouldn't have thought of it that way, but I guess I didn't realize when the book was written. I would say, so I'm originally from the Midwest. I'm from Minnesota, but I now live in Georgia. So even just like different issues that seem more important in one place versus the other, I feel like this book made me think about it from both perspectives. So I think just like as a woman in general, but like also as like a woman of color living in the South after living in the Midwest, it's like very interesting to think about it and how it could have played out if something like that were to happen today, just because there are so many really strong women just across the US that have like a huge voice, and to think that that could be taken away is kind of frightening, but also makes you proud to know that that exists right now. That's all.
Melissa, what did you think?
Hi, everyone. I'm from Toronto, Ontario. So I just kind of related to this book on like a personal level. And really my dad's side of the family he's first generation Canadian. So his parents actually came to Canada from Germany after World War II. And it just kind of like really brought back like my grandmother's voice saying like, you need to go vote, like you have to vote, and just like the importance of like all of our rights taken away so easily if someone comes into power, you know. So that's what I had to say.
Thank you for your contribution. Veronica.
Okay, so I'm originally from California and moved to Oklahoma about 7 years ago. So I see a lot of differences from a very liberal state to a very red state, and definitely when I saw what I saw in the book was definitely take advantage of your freedoms that you have, because you may not even have them from one state to another. Just for example, yesterday, well, on Friday, my husband was asked to quarantine for 2 weeks. He was just not feeling well. I had a not COVID, but just a viral infection that was knocked him off for 2 weeks. So in California, we're like, okay, we'll just file for disability and get paid for that time off. But we come to Oklahoma. Oklahoma is not one of those 5 states that pays disability leave. So I had no idea about that until yesterday. And then also just the freedoms that you have in our own country. We just have to really make sure that we continue to support them and make the noise. We have to really make noise when it's affecting others. When you, I think somebody else mentioned the children in the cages, you know, things like that are just so infuriating that you can't say, well, okay, it's okay for these children because they're here illegally. But you wouldn't do that to any other child. So definitely, ever since new administration took place, I've been definitely been making my voice heard in this country.
Brittany, what do you think?
There we go. It sort of stressed me out a lot because I've been really like politically aware. I wouldn't say necessarily politically active, at least for the last 4 years or so. And it's good to a point until it becomes debilitating and you realize that you can't care about every cause and you can't fight for everything. And you need to narrow it down to what actually is important to you so you can be meaningful in those ways. I find it funny, it's like a Tiger King reference. What's her name? Carol Baskin says that there's only one thing in the world that she cares about, and it's saving big cats. I feel like that's like twee, but to a point it's important that there's something that we feel really important about, and that one thing that we feel important about is something that we're willing to actually go to bat for, versus trying to just split our efforts on everything and care about every topic.
Thank you for that. All right, ladies, that is all the answers for that question. I'm going to give away another book to the Canadians. It is called, and I'm sorry we don't have more for if there's anybody in Britain or Europe left on the call, but The Bitter and Sweet of Cherry Season. And we did an event with Molly Fader last year, and she's absolutely hilarious. I love her to bits. So very excited to be giving away this copy, and it is a advanced copy. Again, we hope to get it to you before it is not an advanced copy. So the question here, and we have 2 more books after this to give away, but we're running out of discussion questions, so we will give them right at the end for all those people that hung on. And let me just go get the question that I have now lost. And we are on number 8, and it is, what color is Sonia's counter in the beginning of the book? So if you want to put your answers in the chat, then Missy will let you know if you have won. And I will move on to, this is actually our last question. And then after this question, Val will do one for the United States, and I'll do one for Canada, another book giveaway, and we will wrap up. So, Jean gives up her voice long before the Pure movement comes to power by declining to use it. Are there other ways in which we voluntarily silence ourselves? Linda.
Yes. And it was kind of mentioned before, if you're not voting or if you're not taking part in something, and then, you know, well, you can't whine about it because there was a referendum or there was a vote on this and you didn't want to do that. But it also reminds me of, I thought it was a little trite, that Jackie, who had this big voice in college, and Jean, who didn't want to spend any energy on it, then those roles just magically switch at the end, and Jean is the one who winds up saving Jackie's voice by what they did to eliminate the voices of the administration, and then Jackie goes on her back into her protest mode. So anything like that, or people who don't take education seriously, who go to spend the money on college, even if it's loans or by their parents, and don't get the benefit of it. They're taking their own voices away. So if you're not being the best you that you can be, you're not learning what you should learn, and you're not speaking up. And I think we should be looking at larger issues than big cats. I mean, the children in cages, definitely. Healthcare, definitely. Those are the issues we need to start. Let's start way high level, and then I don't want to use a Reagan term, but trickle down to those community type efforts that could be used. Like I did watch that Tiger King because my daughter said it was really good. I thought it was horrible. I thought both sides. I thought Carol was just as horrible as the goofball in Oklahoma. I thought the whole thing was just a sad commentary on life. But so we take each other's voices away. Sometimes the woman earlier who said she's hushed a lot by her husband, and if we were just chattering about nothing, okay, maybe that's, okay, you caught me, thanks for the reminder. But if you were saying something that you intended to say that was meaningful to you, did you allow that to hush you up? Or did you say, no, I'm going to be heard? I mean, sometimes we do it ourselves because of being called hysterical or crazy, or because our husband hushes us for any reason. Okay, that's all I had.
Thank you. I think it's Eileen. Am I saying it right?
Yes, you are correct.
Perfect.
Thank you. I think the see something, say something movement is very apropos in this case, because so many times we say, well, somebody else will say something.
Yeah.
And we leave it to that instead of knowing that we should say something, but whether we're afraid to speak up and use our voice or just don't want to get involved, we allow it to be, we allow ourselves to be passive and an onlooker. And I think that causes a lot of problems.
I know certainly in my life, there's been instances where something's happened, and just not to ruffle any feathers, whether it's a career situation or whatnot, but you just look the other way, and when you think you look back and you should have said something, for sure.
Right. And my background is in human resource management, and I worked in manufacturing and distribution for many, many years. And one of the biggest things I used to hear when I first started, and I tried to get people to have a voice, the employees to have a voice and to change things. But I constantly was hearing, well, I don't want to say anything, the supervisor should know. And my response was, how would they know? If you're not going to speak up, how are we going to know?
On that, sorry.
Yeah, that's
on
okay.
that point, I just feel like so many HR departments are just about getting by, as opposed to, like, that's great to hear that you're like, let's actually move change, because isn't that really what their job's about?
Right. And that was, I'm a change manager.
All right, ladies, that's it. We have 2 books to give away. Val, you want to go first?
All right, final one for the US. This is Better Dead Than Divorced. Possibly controversial book that we've got here, certainly titled. This is from our partners at Book Trip who provided this, so thank you to them and for all the books for US tonight. The question to answer to win this is, what is Christina Dalcher's next book called? If you joined us on our Meet the Author last week, you would know this if you caught it.
Or if you can Google quickly.
Or also that.
All right, and then the last book for Canada is The Woman Before Wallace by Bryn Turnbull. This is her debut novel. It is historical fiction. It is supposed to be a wonderful book. I am on page 50, so I've enjoyed it so far. But yeah, so we'll be giving that away right now to, I said, the Canadian ladies online still. Those of you who have held out to the end. And the last question, which is kind of a very fun question, if you had to rename the title of the book, what would you have called it? So yeah, if you just want to put that into the chat window, then Missy will. Good answer, Madison. She says silenced. So thank you all for joining us. Val, will you just pop that link in for our next virtual meetings next month? And I don't even have a copy of it. I feel terrible about that, but this is how it always, or no, that is not next month's book. We Have Always Been Here by Samra Habib. It is a memoir. Thank you, Val. Val has it there. It is excellent. It is short. And then in May, we're reading Circe by Madeline Miller, which is a, I guess, historical fiction, you would call it. It is all about Olympians, and it's magical and mystical and very, very interesting. So I hope that you join us for the next 2 months. I hope we're back meeting in May, but I have a feeling it might be June. But it's great that you could all join us online. And thank you to Missy and to Val. And again, thank you to all the frontline workers for everything you're doing during this really, really tough time. We owe you a lot. Thank you for staying till the end. Good night, ladies.
Good night.
Thank you. Nice meeting you.
Thank you. Nice meeting you.